But literally the idea that I would be running a cult is like the funniest thing. So now the meme on my channel is that join the Discord, it's a cult, right? It's like a joke. You should pay attention to me. If you think I'm suspicious, hate me for the real me, not the version of me in your head. I don't mind if you hate me, but you gotta hate me for the real me, not the version of me in your head. I'm not a cult leader. Nobody's got time to run that cult. But hey, if you guys want to join the cult, join the Discord. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittany Simon. So if you're new to my content, the thing I want to show you guys or teach you guys, that's why I want to teach you how to play the game. My work is supposed to help you figure out what game and what bubble you're in. My work isn't everything you watch, because I'm in like the, I guess, self-help bubble, I guess. If you want to become one of my callers, I will help you. I am better than self-help. Call me. I know I'm expensive, but I'm worth every penny. I'm better than life advice itself, girl, better than self-help. I can give you as many tools that would help somebody else, but it might not help you. I can be actually a hindrance to your journey. I could be the bad guy in your journey. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's podcast. My name is Brittany Simon. In today's podcast, I want to talk to you guys. This is my work. It is something I'm passionate about, and I think it's really, really helpful. So I hope it helps you today. I don't have a thing I want to sell you. I just have things that I think are interesting and I want to share with you.
Meet Brittany Simon. Brittany is a mid-sized commentary YouTuber. As of July 2024, she has almost 90,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel and posts almost daily. She also streams 4 to 5 times a week and usually draws somewhere around 200 viewers. If we go to her website, we can see that Brittany uses a few other platforms. She does have an OnlyFans where she posts something called ethereal adult work. I don't really know or care what that means, but it seems like it's just pictures of her in her underwear. Brittany also uses Patreon, which is where she makes a good portion of her income. Now, the Patreon is interesting, and it's going to come up a lot in this video. For one, the Patreon is how you gain access to the Brittany Simon community Discord for $10 a month. But for a modest $250, you can book a monthly hour-long private phone call with Brittany herself, and apparently the purpose of the call is entirely up to you. We'll revisit these phone calls later, but as you can see, a significant amount of Brittany's presence online is hidden behind a paywall. So for many of you who aren't direct fans of her, it may be the case that you're unfamiliar with much of Brittany Simon's content and body of work. I was too, and out of curiosity, I decided to investigate what Brittany's content was about, what her community's like, and what goes on in her private calls with her fans. So today, I'm going to share what I found. From the true purpose of her channel to troubling stories from her community, let's see how Brittany Simon has essentially written the handbook on how to exploit your fans and get away with it.
Some people get lost in the role of being the good person while they're fucking people over behind closed doors, but because they built this role of being the good person, they can never see themselves as the bad guy in the story. Hi everyone, I'm Brittany Simon. I run on the sort of reactionary philosophy side of YouTube, and I create content reviewing pop culture and philosophy. Well, obviously I think philosophy is the key, right? And introspection is the key to that. No matter who you are, what your aim is with the introspection, you have to have a relationship with yourself. You have to have a moment with yourself, and you have to be honest about the things that are ugly about you and the things that are beautiful about you and the things that are honest. And you have to have such a specific relationship with yourself.
If you want to take advantage of your audience, first things first, you need to have an idea, a product you can sell them. For Brittany, it's easy to identify what her product is. Brittany's 3 favorite words are philosophy, introspection, and consciousness. She pitches herself as somebody who's on a journey, who really wants to share the things that she's learned, hopefully to help you along your journey. Through philosophy, she wants to give you the tools for how to be introspective enough to achieve greater consciousness. On its face, this sounds fine, but when you start watching Brittany's content, it becomes quickly clear that she has no idea what she's talking about. For one thing, Brittany never talks about philosophy in the traditional sense.
If I was going to look at this in a philosophy way, again, we'd go down to what is the consciousness. Again, okay, therapy helps you with your mental health and which overlaps, but we're talking about your consciousness. And then what is the commitment we've made to that consciousness that is your husband. When I talk about philosophy, or we talk about existential dread or introspection, I'm really talking about the desire to really know the self and then to have a relationship with existence.
It's clear that when Brittany uses the word philosophy, she's just using it as a stand-in for thinking about life. Her philosophical teachings are generally just nonsensical chains of words with ambiguous definitions, and she's sort of hoping you're just nodding your head along with her the whole time.
Philosophy introspection is different from superficial self-help introspection. Because you're not introspecting in the depth. We're talking about depth. We're talking about more than the ego. If you're introspecting to be the best ball player, that's only in relation to specifically basketball, right? What does that have to do with the greater universe, the greater knowing, the greater consciousness?
Yet she advertises herself as a philosophy channel. It's one of the very first hashtags she uses for her content. But her channel is almost entirely about dating, drama, and pop culture. My guess is Brittany uses the term because she thinks of herself as something of a philosopher, and to call her content philosophy gives her ideas more credibility. But no, you will never find discussions of traditional philosophy on this channel. Just incoherent ramblings about her favorite 3 words. As for introspection, this is something Brittany talks about incessantly. She often refers to her journey of introspection, and the way she presents it is as though she, through time and hard work, self-reflected enough and eventually discovered a set of tools to be able to better understand herself and other human beings.
As you guys know, I'm obsessed with introspection. It's a journey, it'll take a lifetime, but I do think that I'm having a real relationship with myself. Like, you guys know I'm literally obsessed with introspection. What is introspection? It never ends. After I got therapy, and then after I went on my philosophy journey, and after I went on my introspection journey, I realized, like, okay, I needed to let go of the resentment and bitterness I had for other people's own journey. And I needed to recognize, like, they are me on a journey just like I am.
Brittany seems to think that the ideas of self-reflection and subjectivity are novel concepts that she has elevated access to. This is one of her most recurring character traits. She tries to make very surface-level concepts, like empathy, sound advanced and complicated, as if she possesses secret, unique wisdom.
My work is to prove that everyone is living in a subjective reality. Everyone is on a journey. It's easier to forgive ourselves and other people when we realize that.
It seems that Brittany's years of therapy, studying philosophy, and introspection have helped her come to the realization that everybody has their own subjective experiences. Brittany's entire channel revolves around providing her viewers the tools to go on their own introspection journeys and discover these same highly normal, surface-level ideas. Her obsession with this part of her worldview actually leaves her unable to effectively take stances on the topics she covers or give out proper criticism. But more on that later. Finally, when it comes to her 3rd favorite word, consciousness, it's anyone's guess what exactly Brittany means when she says it.
My work is to talk about the philosophy of the consciousness. That's different than a person who's having a realization of consciousness in relation to all of the universe. Specific consciousness level, and that's the you. Not even the general you. Are you asking me, the citizen? Are you asking me, Brittany, a consciousness? It has so much to do with existence. So existing is like your relationship with your consciousness, and existence is the relationship with everything outside of your consciousness. I think your brain and your consciousness are separate, even though your consciousness is like the computer that your brain allows the consciousness to sort of ignite. That's my assessment. I have diagnosed her with lack of relationship with consciousness. Philosophy Brittany coming in.
She uses that word to describe souls, people, personalities, experiences. Science doesn't know what that word means, and neither does Brittany. One pattern of behavior that will come up a lot is that Brittany is constantly talking out of both sides of her mouth. And she often says things sort of like she's winking while she's saying it. Like how she claims she doesn't want to sell you on any of these ideas, yet consistently seems to try to do that.
I don't have a thing I want to sell you. I want to help people find and have a relationship with their joy and their consciousness. I can't sell you a course because it's individualistic. That's why I take individual calls, right? I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm going to give you tools that help me get exactly the lifestyle that I wanted. And I'm so grateful that I have a lot of sort of forms of knowledge in my head, and I'm glad that I can help so many people.
And while I personally think that Brittany doesn't really have much insight on these ideas that she wants to sell you, the truth is, there is a market for it. And she knows that market.
And a lot of people might not know what I do. I'm just a person on the internet. I discovered something about myself, and I feel as a neurodivergent, queer woman in the world who has relationships from like gender to spirituality to sort of politics to everything. I found myself really confused about my place on this planet. I am older than you, and I've spent 20 years of my life wanting to unalive myself. I understand. But you don't have to stay there. You can get out of that bubble. You just have to get the tools.
As far as I can tell, there are 3 main reasons why someone might decide to watch a YouTuber who makes serious or thoughtful content. Number 1 would be expertise. This is reserved for creators who have a professional or educational background that makes them uniquely qualified to talk about the subjects they cover. A good example of this is Dr. K. He has a medical degree and he's a licensed psychiatrist. Brittany Simon does not belong to this group.
Because again, the only thing I'm a professional in is myself.
The second reason you might watch someone like this would be for their perspective. You don't always need qualifications or credentials to be well-informed and good at analyzing information. Destiny's a good example of this one. He doesn't have a background in politics, but he has a strong grasp of the topics he covers, and he's a great debater. And while I'm sure that some of her audience might value Brittany's perspective on things, generally speaking, I cannot imagine that most of her viewers watch her for her takes.
That's how I think of it. I think of philosophy as the why of me, the consciousness of the world and its consciousness, and then I think of politics as the how that consciousness moves forward in the world and like works as a society.
I think most of Brittany's audience belongs to the final group. This one we'll refer to as the parasocial group. Parasociality is a one-sided relationship that a media user, the fan, engages in with a media persona, in this case, the streamer. Parasocial relationships are complicated, and their impact on fans is pretty controversial and not well understood. Most content creators on YouTube and Twitch engage in some form of parasociality with their communities. Even something as simple as reading a super chat is an example of a parasocial interaction.
Thank you very much for the super chats.
But it's commonly understood that much of the parasocial interaction that happens with fans is mostly fine, especially when it's out in the open like a super chat, and in some cases it can even be healthy for the viewer. But the bad part about parasociality is when the streamer or creator takes advantage of their fans' attachment to them, or when the nature of the relationship is intentionally made obscure. I'll let Brittany explain.
I'm not a big fan of parasocial encouragement between an audience and a content creator, because like that's the danger of parasocial, is like you're not having the real relationship, so you're having the one in your head. But because of parasocial relationships, everyone thinks everyone is closer than they are, and I'm telling you right now, you're not close.
So who exactly does Brittany try to appeal to? Who is it that gets drawn to and parasocially attached to her? This is where things start to get a little messy.
I know so many of you in my audience, right? My VC on Discord was just talking about this, how my audience is like borderlines, autistics, and ADHDers. Half my audience is autistic, my siblings autistic, like I'm probably autistic. First thing I mention on a first date is, hey, I'm diagnosed PTSD. I was assaulted. Hey, I was diagnosed borderline. I was a queer kid growing up in a conservative home. I'm like in the neurodivergent queer bubble. I formed mental illnesses. I had problems with unaliving myself.
Brittany clearly wants certain types of people to relate to her, and the common denominator is they are typically lonely and vulnerable. Her content consistently deals with themes of mental illness, depression, loneliness, feeling marginalized.
In today's podcast, we're going to explore the idea of how to process being cheated on, staying disciplined when you're neurodivergent or have chronic health issues. I worked so hard to tackle my depression, to tackle my borderline.
She also talks about being neurodivergent and queer a lot. There are even hashtags in her Twitter and YouTube bio. Interestingly enough, both of these populations have been found to be uniquely susceptible to parasocial attachment. Now, I don't think there's anything definitely wrong with catering your content to a specific group of people, even vulnerable ones, but there's a difference between making content for people and making people rely on you. Not only does Brittany present herself as someone who has tools, who can offer help, who's been through the same journey as you, she also presents herself as a maternal figure to her fans.
I just want to be a mom. I love kids. I grew up raising kids, doing nannying professionally, and now I call myself Mama Simon. Actually, I get to be a voice in the community that says I might not have children in the sense that I might not raise them, but I'm happy to be a sort of mother figure or an auntie figure or a sister figure or a figure that says like I will care for people who need a moment of care. And I became the mother of, well, the internet, right?
Already, Brittany is blurring the lines between creator and fan, and she knows this can cause problems.
It works on people. And I hate to say that, but like people are so susceptible because they are so desperate for a good-looking, smooth, charismatic person to appeal to their vulnerabilities and in need of validation. And then all of a sudden, boom. And I think with content creators, there's like a parasocial element which confuses people. Even with me, People have a version of me in their head that isn't me.
But playing a parental role and wanting to help her fans is only the beginning of her confusing her audience. Remember, Brittany also has an OnlyFans, where apparently before she got married, she had gone on dates with customers, and she thinks it's up to the customer to assess whether she's actually interested in them or not.
To say like, oh yeah, we're gonna be together, but it's part of the persona, then it's more on the audience member to be really reasonable with how they're interacting with a persona. So I think there is a very blurred, nuanced line, and you can't always know what you're dealing with. So, act with caution.
And speaking of her husband, he was a fan she met in her Discord community.
The person that I married had only seen a few of my videos because they had seen me on the internet, but they didn't watch me. They weren't a viewer.
Brittany tries to downplay how much her husband was a fan of hers before they got married, but I've been told by multiple of her former fans that he was a prominent member of her community and spent a ton of time in her Discord server before they met. I'm not sure who would pay monthly to routinely hang out in a Discord server of someone they're not a fan of, and I'm not sure why Brittany would be dodgy about this, considering she's admitted part of the purpose of her channel was to find a husband.
Look, I'm a content creator, and I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't hoping somebody would come across my work and fall in love with my brain and want to marry me.
But the worst aspect of Brittany's parasocial irresponsibility is that she makes it confusing for her fans to know whether she is their friend or not. Remember the hour-long private calls she sells to her fans? These calls are a large portion of Brittany's business, and she's routinely booked out every month.
And then I have calls for the rest of the day, so I have to go do those, and I'm so excited for those. They're gonna be great.
The purpose of these calls seems to be mainly for her self-help services.
You should book a call with me because I'm better than even life advice itself.
But remember that the purpose of the calls is entirely up to the caller. So many of Brittany's fans call her just to hang out.
Like literally some of my callers, like we play video games, like sometimes we just talk, like sometimes it's very fun.
Personally, I just think her audience of lonely, troubled people paying her $250 to hang out with her for an hour is weird and creepy. But I understand some people don't have a problem with this part. The problem comes in when Brittany intentionally blurs the lines around what her relationship with the caller actually is. Before we finish this chapter, let's briefly learn about one of Brittany's former fans. To keep her identity private, we'll call her Alondra. Alondra unfortunately suffers from borderline personality disorder and became a frequent caller of Brittany's. She developed a great amount of respect and admiration for Brittany throughout their interactions, partially because of their shared diagnosis. One day, Alondra messaged Brittany. She was upset that she couldn't be provided with a real and meaningful friendship, which she felt like she needed, and she decided to cancel her calls. Let's read Brittany's response.
Hey girl, your tone is great, clear and to the point. I am not canceling the $30 level. I'm just limiting it to 10 calls a month eventually. That way I'm still offering discounted calls and regular priced calls. I respect your desire to cancel our call. I know you didn't mean to remove yourself from the call list, so if this month you still want it, we can make it work. But I understand you wanting to move on. Thank you for letting me know your boundaries and desires in friendship. It's true, I can't offer anything more intimate than I can, and that's limited. I respect that. To clarify, does this mean you don't want to be friends at all? Or do you just want to give me space or want me to give you more space? We are adults. I'm open to having many friends with whom I see when I can and talk to when I can without needing to be very close. But I also know that might not work for everyone. Please let me know so I can properly interact with you.
Brittany's response to Alondra is a strange mix of business, intimacy, and offers of different types of friendships that if I were in Alondra's position, I would find completely disorienting. If you are offering a service to your mentally ill fans, you should not be dancing in and out of the label of genuine friendship with them. A friend is somebody who doesn't need to be paid to stick around. You're either offering your fans a service or friendship. It cannot be both. How Brittany treated Alondra here is a mishandling of parasociality.
What I'm doing is lazy and selfish, and I'm saying it right now. I chose the easiest path, but I chose the easiest path for me. I don't give a fuck about any of you outside of what I can do to help you.
Look, make whatever content you want, Brittany, but if you're going to market yourself towards lonely and vulnerable people because of the help you can offer them, then you need to decide what role you're going to be playing for these people. You cannot sometimes be their teacher, sometimes their mother, sometimes their wife, and sometimes their friend. And most of all, you cannot sometimes be their therapist.
You guys know, because we cover philosophy and spirituality here and other things, people often think I'm like trying to be like this spiritual guru. I'm not trying to be anything other than a YouTuber. Okay, I like YouTube. I'm here to make content. I'm here to do commentary. That's what I'm here to do, girl. But obviously we have like a philosophy spin on things. And look, I could rebrand my whole channel to be this like soft-spoken guru that sells you a narrative only to come out years later being an asshole. And I think that's the problem with these like guru types or these people selling you courses. Or it's not like every person who sells you a course is a bad person, or every person who's a guru is a bad person, but there's a very specific snaky type.
So she's got her ideas and she knows who her market is. So how exactly does Brittany draw people into her community and sell her private calls? We've already covered that a lot of her fans are parasocially attached to her, and some of them might just come into her community through her sex work. But one thing Brittany is very good at is avoiding accepting a label for what exactly her services are. She disagrees that she offers life coaching.
So like, I don't see myself as a life coach, but like Destiny does. But then when I think of a life coach, I think of somebody who's like, let me help you through your problems to get from point A to point B, which I can't guarantee because I don't have a business like that.
She doesn't think people are paying her for her friendship.
I think when you're being paid to be a friend, that's different. So like, I wouldn't call Brittany a practitioner, but I would call like a chiropractor a practitioner.
Who's paying to be someone's friend?
what
Who's
about
doing that?
And of course, Brittany maintains that she is not your therapist.
I'm not a therapist, but I am a person who's gathered tools.
Now, Brittany often says that she tries to maintain clear boundaries and expectations with regard to her not being a therapist. And in fairness to her, I believe she does make an effort.
If I do get the vibe that they're coming to me for therapy, then that's the vibe of, hey bro, like just to clarify, you know I'm not a college graduate. You know I do not have a degree in therapy or psychology or whatever. Like I don't have a license.
But this is another instance of Brittany talking out of both sides of her mouth. When it comes to what she says in her content, she flirts a little too closely with the line between therapy services and whatever it is that she offers.
Now, I'm not in therapy. I do philosophy work, right? So like knowing yourself, working with the like, who is your consciousness? Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, this is what I do with my callers. And I'm not surprised that some of my work and his work do overlap, since he's on the philosophy train of like self-improvement as well as therapy, which are two different things. They just tend to overlap sometimes.
And I'd go so far as to say that it really seems sometimes like Brittany wants you to think of her as something of an alternative to therapy.
Remember, like therapists help with mental health. And I think when you're going through levels of introspection, you're going through something like more spiritual, more like about the humanhood of yourself. And therapists are legally like unable to always help you with that. So that's why I recommend the one-on-one calls. Check out Patreon. You might be able to find a spot. And though I am honored that lots of people mistake my channel for a therapy channel or mental health channel, most of my community is more in the therapy space. Like we all watch The Therapist on YouTube and like Dr. Kirkonda and stuff. And he's come on my channel. And so I think we're all probably in the more progressive like therapy spaces, which is why we all probably, I misuse those words too much and people think I'm a therapist, which I'm not. I just like love therapy stuff. But I know what it's like to want to unalive. And I also now know what it's like to no longer desire to unalive. And it's, guys, I'm telling you, it's the best.
So you can't say that Brittany is a life coach or a paid friend or a therapist or anything really. But she does want to be taken seriously. That's why it's always her work and not just her content.
I like my work. I love my work. Oh my God, what a dream job. I love my work. This is where I think I excel in my work. My work is about understanding humans and why they do what they do.
So back to the original question. How does Brittany lure in her vulnerable audience? The answer is by being whatever it is that they want her to be. You see, Brittany avoiding having to call herself anything means that she can appeal to as many of these people as she needs to earn their money. Whether they need a mother, a friend, a coach, a spiritual guide, Brittany's got it all covered. And the problem with this is that by not having to commit to any of these specific roles, she avoids responsibility for all of them. Maybe you call Brittany for advice and things haven't been going well.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Who fucking cares? They try something, it doesn't work. What does it matter?
Maybe you call Brittany for support, like as a mother figure or a friend.
I don't give a fuck about your feelings. I'm not your mom, and you're not my best friend.
And maybe, in your private call with Brittany, she dissuades you from going to therapy, like she allegedly did to Alondra, who suffers from severe BPD. I don't know why Brittany did this, but because she's not a therapist, she can't be held accountable for giving therapy advice to somebody like Alondra. Brittany lures in her mentally ill and vulnerable fans by being able to offer them anything they need at the point in their lives that they come across her content. But she wants it both ways. She wants to play mother, play life coach, and play therapist, but she doesn't want the responsibility of actually being any of these things.
This whole, like, anyone who's trying to sell you a way to do anything without the responsibility of the action you take, anyone who's trying to sell you anything, any belief system that's trying to guarantee you something without the responsibility that comes with it,
finding it hard to understand a lot of points you were making. I'm really enjoying the streams, but at the same time, it feels like we are speaking completely different languages. We probably are. You know, there are people that hate when I say we're speaking different languages. It like triggers them. And they're like, what the fuck is she talking about? Nobody speaks different languages. And I'm like, yeah, we do. Even if we speak English, we're absolutely using words differently. See how I feel like I know the bubbles make so much sense? Because in order for us to have this conversation, we have to acknowledge a difference of perception. So acknowledging a difference of perception means radically accepting that we are using language differently, even if we all speak English.
So, now that Brittany started building her community, her next step is to keep them coming back. After all, $10 a month to access her Discord server is good, but it's even better if she can book out all of her monthly calls. When you're building a fanbase, a good way to keep your members loyal is to make them feel like they belong somewhere. If you can instill a sense of exclusivity, that's even better. I mean, it can be cool to feel like you're part of a club or even a movement, rather than just a viewer of somebody. There are a variety of ways to do this, and usually there's nothing wrong with it. Most creators give their fanbase a nickname, they sell merchandise, things like that. But one common method that influencers or groups can use to build shared identity is by creating a secret language. These are generally words or phrases that don't really mean anything to people outside of the group, but within the group, they're kind of like a handshake. Often these languages consist of reductive, thought-terminating phrases that communicate the group's ideas, kind of like slogans. A good example of this in everyday conversation is when people say, "it is what it is." It doesn't really mean anything, and it sort of prevents any further critical thinking about the topic. Or a good group example is Donald Trump's favorite mantra.
Make America great again.
You get to be open, but have boundaries. I'm open, but I have boundaries, right? So we say often on this channel, I'm open, but I have boundaries. Going back to a classic mantra on this channel, I'm open, but I have boundaries. I'm open, but I have boundaries. And if I've learned anything from my work, it's that humans are gonna human. And again, in order for me to radically accept that humans were gonna human, which is like a big slogan on this channel, I am a radical acceptance person. I think humans are gonna human. I think all of us live in different bubbles. The world is mostly in their bubbles, and we're all in bubbles, all of us, even me. I call it like cultural bubbles, ideological bubbles, and then I think about like the individual's bubble. So the philosophy bubble is different, it's global, and every bubble talks about things differently. Bubbles, 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 bubbles.
I could keep going, but I think you get the idea. Brittany is actually pretty good at drilling her messaging into her viewers' heads. Her favorite phrase, "humans are gonna human," is plastered all over her channel, and is on her merchandise. And Bubbles is in the title of almost every single one of her live streams. But again, the problem here is that Brittany's language is highly reductive and thought-terminating. "Humans are gonna human" is essentially synonymous with "it is what it is," and she uses bubbles to simply mean different walks of life or different environments. This turns into an issue when it comes to evaluating people's behavior and issuing proper criticism of others. As I mentioned earlier in the video, her adherence to these phrases and ideas leaves her often ineffective at analyzing some of the topics she covers. Just listen to her thoughts on murder, for instance.
But you do make some prescriptions, right? You do think that it's wrong to murder people. You think it's wrong to steal from people. You would probably prescribe those things to people.
But think about the nuance of murder itself, right? I have 4 military brothers. Sometimes you have to do things you wouldn't do in civilian life, right? You're allowed to take the life. Well,
like murder
that's the
is
problem.
Unjust killing, whereas like
I kind of think war is unjust.
I tell you right now, I'm getting ready to go murder my family. I hate my kids and my wife and everybody. You're just gonna be like, humans gonna human, or what?
Well, obviously, again, I belong to a society, right? Like I choose the countries I live in. I try to live in a place that's closest to my values. And I live in countries where like that's not allowed. And I agree with that prescription, but I also would understand if somebody was born into a different country where that's allowed, why people wouldn't understand why that's wrong. Like humans gonna human is like a saying that helps you as an individual not freak out when you see the world doing things that make you feel icky. It's like, hold on, they're being very human and they're doing a very human thing. Sin is human, right? Murdering is human, raping is human, everything we do is human because like humans are what they are.
Maybe Brittany is just too enlightened, and I just need to introspect more to realize that you shouldn't freak out about normal human things like rape and murder. But let's look at one example of this worldview showing up in her content. This is caitibugzz. Katie is a small Twitch streamer, who's most well known for this video from March of 2024, in which she accuses larger Minecraft streamer GeorgeNotFound of sexual assault.
My story is about power and age and consent.
The video attracted quite a bit of attention and generated lots of coverage, including a response from George, who defended himself and pointed out some inaccuracies with Katie's story.
I was very cautious about it and making sure that she was comfortable throughout the process. So I had Dream reach out to get some clarification on it. So they replied back and essentially just said that it was an accident and that Katie had gotten confused on who said what.
One creator who covered the situation was Lerix, who pointed out some falsehoods that Katie made and defended George's perspective.
She's literally just lying through her teeth. She's just lying. She gets caught in a lie, she makes another lie, and just keeps compiling lie after lie after lie.
Now, I won't give too much of my own opinion on the topic, but there were several holes in Katie's story, and Lerix's coverage was perfectly reasonable. If you want to know more about the situation, there's a link to Lerix's coverage in the description below. Brittany Simon, however, made this video. In it, she's repeatedly dismissive towards Lerix and denigrates him because of his age, essentially saying he's too immature to have a valid outlook on the situation.
He's a baby boy, can't rent a car, can't do shit he wants, can't run for president.
Which, by the way, according to this tweet from Brittany, her birthday is around May of 1989, making her 34 years old at the time of this video, which means she's also too young to run for president. But I digress. So yeah, Brittany was super condescending towards Lerix.
Okay, so he's a baby. He doesn't know. Like, he doesn't know things. It's okay. If he watches my video, maybe he'll learn a lot, but yeah.
So Lerix and Brittany agreed to debate the situation between Katie and George a few days later. This conversation is a masterclass in how to avoid taking a hard stance on an issue and endlessly excuse poor behavior.
She said it was just a typo in her script. That is a provable lie. That's what I just proved.
Okay, hold on. Let me think about this. Is it? Yeah, my brain is like, and again, this is why my channel is like a philosophy channel. Because we're like, what does this mean? What does this mean when people say this? I'm okay with it being obviously possibly a lie, for sure, 1000%, right? I just don't know if it was internally a lie. But if it would help, I can concede and say that I could see why this could be considered a lie. I couldn't gun to my head if they're like, was Katie lying? Like, I wouldn't know how to answer that question. And I know this might sound like a dismiss, but it really is context. Not everyone cuddles the same or spoons the same. Well, again, I think the problem is, like, we agree Katie did something, well, I think we just don't agree that Katie's being intentional. I don't know that. I can't know that. Like, I know
How it's not intentional. Like she knew it was wrong and she let it continue to be spread. Because it benefited her.
But remember, everyone is in their own bubble.
You do not think that's flirtatious, though, when you're spooning in bed with someone? Wouldn't you self-admit that that's flirtatious?
Okay, here's a question for you, because like I'm also in the queer bubbles mostly, and I'm with a lot of like gay people. Like, we kiss and we're not even going anywhere with it, girl. Like, okay. We're in a different.
Remember, Brittany called Lerix's coverage the worst, and her obsession with her radical acceptance philosophies had her acting smug and condescending towards him. But when it came time to have the conversation, she had very little to actually say. Her content revolves around hammering home these types of ideas, about bubbles and how humans are just going to do human things, but there is one type of situation in which Brittany is comfortable being critical.
You're just very dismissive of this, but we can move on.
I don't mean to be dismissive. I think what I am is I'm not personally involved. I'm not putting my personal emotions into it. I'm just speaking, like, I'm trying not to make it personal because it's not about me and it's not personal.
For Brittany, humans are just going to human, unless she's personally slighted, like when she had a falling out with Destiny.
Destiny's blocked for being a shit father and a shit partner. And how dare he lecture Daisy over parenting when he doesn't even tuck his kid into bed every night?
So remember, guys, turn off your critical thinking caps. It is what it is. Humans are getting human. Unless they did something to you personally, then they're just a piece of shit.
So the levels aren't meant to be prescribed. They're not meant to be a judgment tool. They're meant to be a tool for you, the individual, the person that is going through something and questioning their place in the universe and asking themselves, is there a way to better understand myself and the world? And this is my tool for that. The levels. The levels are an observational philosophy that I created with a co-author who likes to remain anonymous. I've made tons of podcasts on this, like 60 plus. I've made so many videos, individual videos on what level people could be. So the levels represent 1 through 5 levels of introspection. So the self, the relationship we're having with ourselves, and of course, with the world. But mostly it's about you, right? I need it to be very clear that the level system is about recognizing your literal meaning and purpose of existence in relation to the universe, not just what it means to be a human.
If you've heard of Brittany Simon before watching this video, then you probably know about what she calls the levels. The levels is Brittany's magnum opus. It's her proudest accomplishment, And when she says things like this,
My work isn't everything you watch.
she's referring to the levels. But it's also the part of her work that's been the most heavily scrutinized.
And then you've got a level system where you categorize yourself at the top, and they probably feel like if they talk to you, you'd categorize them lower. I think that harbors a lot of resentment, or they would harbor a lot of resentment as a result of that, and then people will attack you for it.
Now, the levels are essentially a system of categorizing people according to their ability or maybe willingness to be introspective.
If you look at my levels video, my own philosophy linked in the description, it is very difficult. I think most people are 2s on this level system.
When you are in a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're trying to self-examine your introspection against your extrospection, but you're trying to formulate them together to see where you are in terms of how much you consider the why.
In all honesty, I don't really care enough to go into more detail about the level system. And personally, as with most of Brittany's content, I just find it all pretty incoherent. But if you'd like to try to decipher it yourself, feel free to check out Brittany's video where she explains the whole thing. I did want to briefly point out that it really feels like Brittany lifted a lot of her ideas about the levels from a Polish psychologist named Kazimierz Dabrowski. And while Dabrowski's theories are far more advanced, for those that are interested, I recommend reading about his work. The similarities to Brittany's levels are pretty hard to miss. Brittany, of course, already thought of a defense against any allegation that she copied any part of her work.
And so we were wondering, is anyone else doing this? Is anyone else discovering this? And the answer was yes, of course. Other people have definitely gone through the journey of the levels. And that's what's been so cool about this work, is that I've come to discover so many other people have things that are similar to this.
So remember, even though I am explaining to you the levels, I didn't create the concept of the levels. I'm just recontextualizing philosophy and my relationship with it in a way that makes sense to my brain. But obviously, you can go to any philosopher, you can read any book.
You actually can't accuse Brittany of plagiarism, because she's not copying other people's ideas, she's just rewording them. Great. For today, though, we don't care that much about that part. What we care about is how could it be exploitative. Just like we talked about in Chapter 4, one way that groups can keep their members involved is through something called affiliation motivation, or the need to belong and feel like you're a part of something. The unique language that Brittany and her community speaks is one good way to cultivate that sense of belonging, and the levels is kind of like another language in and of itself. But another good way to build that affiliation is to create hierarchy. Within the levels, 5 is the highest and 1 is obviously the lowest. I'm sure you've already figured out where Brittany ranks herself in the levels.
As a consciousness, I'm a 5, even though I know I'm a 5 on my level scale because I know what a 5 is.
And this is how she feels about level 1s.
1s, useless people who can't even figure it out.
1 are useless people who are a burden and drain on society and the world around them, and in your words, so useless they can't even kill themselves.
I know.
Which is
Poetic, right? It's one of the cleverest things I've ever said.
Again, I don't really care about the levels, and if Brittany wants to arbitrarily assign numbers to people indicating their worth, she should feel free. But what it does to her fans, who are attached to her and look up to her, is it gives them a social hierarchy. Brittany's at the top, of course, and from what I've been told, it really seems like if Brittany likes you, she assigns you a higher number, and if she doesn't, you get a lower number. The co-author of the level system was also a level 5, and Brittany reportedly also has an inner circle, which is community members she spends a lot of time with that have also been assigned a higher level. So the higher levels get privilege and more time with Brittany, and the lower levels get insulted and ostracized. Aside from this all just being weird and potentially toxic, the problem here is that Brittany wants you to remember that you can progress through the levels. Ultimately, Brittany is the arbiter of what rank you are, because she created the ranking system.
I'm judging them based off of their ability to understand their existence, what they've chosen to do, and the position they are now in. And now to decide within their own values where they should go.
And the suggestion from her content is that through the tools she provides you, you may be able to ascend in rank.
So I can't make you a level 5. I can just give you tools. You have to help yourself. You know what I mean? I can just give you the tools.
And a big part of her private calls seems to be to help her fans navigate the levels.
Kelsey says, when you do calls, do you chat about things like how to go from level 3, 4, and 5? So my level system, yes, I talk about anything you guys want to talk about, really.
So Brittany's entire branding revolves around this level system, where she's at the top and your value in the community is correlated to your level. She bestows levels to her fans and tends to show preference and spend more time with people that are ranked higher. But you can also pay her $250 a month to try to learn the tools to ascend in your ranking. The levels in Brittany's community just function as a social hierarchy. And if you're willing to pay for the private calls, you not only can potentially buy social status, but also Brittany's attention and approval, which makes the levels just another way of exploiting parasocial attachment for financial gain. We've covered a lot of ground already, but the best part of Brittany's handbook is the last chapter. Brittany isn't unaware of any of these criticisms. In fact, she's heard them all before. She just doesn't have to care.
So I think when people criticize me, they see me as evading, and I see them as disrespecting. If you want me to be open and vulnerable with you about the fact that I cry, you're not owed that vulnerability. I am resentful at the idea that the internet thinks they get my tears. But congratulations, I just admitted publicly that I do cry about it, because I do. Because it's frustrating when you work so fucking hard in your life and you sacrifice and you accomplish beating suicide and you're borderlines in remission and you're fucking killing it, and the only criticism I get is like, there must be something wrong with her because she seems happy. Fuck off.
I don't give Brittany Simon credit for much, but I will give her credit for this. She is very, very good at avoiding criticism, and she is highly manipulative if you try to corner her into accepting responsibility for anything. There are two parts. The first one is how good Brittany herself is at talking her way out of situations. For starters, like we covered earlier, how Brittany avoids labeling her service as anything intentionally to avoid the responsibility of those labels.
We're just out here making dumb content, having fun.
Literally, I'm just a YouTuber. Say it with me. Brittany Simon is a YouTuber. Look, I'm just a person. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just an expert in my life.
She also often tries to put distance between herself and the outcomes of her services by calling herself just a tool and saying she can't guarantee you anything.
But like, I don't know how people get to anywhere. I give you tools, and if the tools help, great. Remember that I'm just a tool, and it might not be me. And that's why when I do core work with people, like on my calls or we talk about it, and again, like, I'm just a person having a conversation, something that worked for me, no guarantee it will work for you.
You see, Brittany often tries to just say that she's not doing something to absolve herself of having done it. But sometimes she slips up and tells you what she actually means.
I can't guarantee your joy. I can't guarantee a good outcome. I can't guarantee peace. I can't guarantee anything. But I can guarantee you, if you go through the journey that many of us have been through, you will reach a point of joy. You will reach a point of understanding the self. I want to help people. I'm not helping people. I'm solving problems.
Let me help you through your problems to get from point A to point B, which I can't guarantee because I don't have a business like that.
I will care for people who need a moment of care. I don't give a fuck about any of you outside of what I can do to help you.
But the most pure form of Brittany slipping out of criticism is when she's backed into a corner. She'll use absolutely any defense at her disposal.
But it's what humans do. It's like a part of it's a part of it's just normal. People fall in love with you. They mistake who you are. They put you on a pedestal. So you take them down. You hold them in your arms. You go, that's not how we're doing it. Pat them on the head and send them on their way.
You understand the insanity of saying that you don't want people to put you on a pedestal when your philosophy is a level system, 1 through 5, and you yourself are a level 5.
Yeah. That's you get the joke? Do you get, like, I didn't do this on purpose. I really genuinely gave it numbers so I would remember their names. But also,
then why don't you change it?
Well, I can't change it. It's already done. I ain't gonna go back and redo all my work. Like, it's too late. We don't even know why we're doing here on this stupid fucking planet. I'm trying my best to share the knowledge I learned. Over time, people have decided to come to me. Our lessons are really fun. You can call them lessons. I don't give a fuck what you call them, girl. Whatever makes you happy, right? Same with sex work. However you want to view it, I don't care. Just let me do what I want to do. If you're so worried about what I'm doing, and I know you are, then admit it. Admit that you want to control me and control my life.
Am I even responsible if they're an adult and they just don't have to watch the YouTube video or internalize it or care? Like, if they think I am causing harm, why would they listen to me? Well, because in their bubble, they have to listen to people who cause harm so they can stop the people that cause the harm. So it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy of pain, where people spend a lot of time in conflicting bubbles trying to convert those people because it hurts their bubble, instead of just accepting that people are different and they might need a different path to reach that help. You know what I'm saying, Jelly Bean?
But the second part of how Brittany avoids criticism is the more important part. It's very simple. Her content teaches her audience how to not think critically about others. So the people that Brittany's exploiting are the ones that are the least likely to notice.
I can see the issues and I do my best, but people are going to people max. I can't live my life and limit myself in how I can impact my community because a few people might not interact with me in the way that quote unquote saves them.
No judgment, girl. Humans are going to human.
You want me to change my whole fucking life because a couple people are retarded and they're mentally ill and they cling to me? It's life. Grow up.
Right? Bubbles. Nothing matters. We're all going to die. It also insinuates a type of investment that I have in people that I don't. I don't care.
We are nobody. We do our best, and sometimes people get hurt. That's life. Grow up. There is a part of a human mind that for a second lives in all of us that says, you know what? Humans are fucking dumb. Oh my God, they're so dumb. They just give their money away. They just give their bodies away. They give their kids away. They're dumb. They're really dumb. I'm going to take advantage of those dumb humans. And then they go about trying to take advantage of those dumb humans.
So, what have we learned? Brittany Simon has written a very effective handbook for how to exploit a fan base. First, you need a brand. Ideally, this is something that requires no expertise and can't be logically challenged, like something spiritual.
So philosophy is about the consciousness, the self. Introspection is about the self.
Then you need to understand your market. How are you going to make people relate to you?
Lots of people in my audience have been traumatized. I'm like in the neurodivergent queer bubble, and all my life since I was about 8 years old, I had desired to unalive myself.
After that, you need to find a way to draw them into your community.
And you want to talk to somebody who will not judge you, call me. I am the perfect person to talk to. And that's why I think I like doing my calls. It can feel like we're friends.
Like a therapist, a sex worker, a priest, friend,
and whatever they need me to
a
be.
lover. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
I'm a Brittany. I'm whatever you need me to be.
Now you want to make them feel like they don't belong anywhere else. You can start by teaching them your own tribal language.
Radically accept humans are going to human. This is life. Bubbles, 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 bubbles. Radically accept humanity for what it was. Humans are going to human. I am open, but I have boundaries.
And it's also a good idea to create a social hierarchy.
If you don't know my level system, it's called The Levels. I already made an amazing video about it. Yeah, most people are 2s and have a 2 understanding of their consciousness. I'm not bragging when I say I'm a 5.
And finally, you should shut off your fans' ability to criticize you.
But I've definitely gotten messages from the internet saying like Brittany's the most evil person who's ever existed. I was like, fuck, if I'm evil, what is anyone else? Like, you live in one bubble, I live in a bubble. In my bubble, this is how we fuck. In your bubble, you fuck different. Girl, that's great, no judgment. But you're judging the way I fuck right now, and it's annoying me. Fuck your audience holding you accountable. Only your morals can. No offense to my audience, I love you, but you can't hold me accountable. Only my values can.
If you followed these steps, you've created a perfect exploitative ecosystem. You've made vulnerable people depend on you, and you made them feel like you could offer them anything they needed. And you're getting a check from them every month. And the best part is, your teachings have trained them to accept whatever you do, because humans are just gonna human. But is that all there is? Is there anything else we can learn from the Brittany Simon Handbook? Let's go back and look at our table of contents. Does any of this look familiar? Some of you who are studied in psychology might have already guessed Brittany's final lesson. This is how you form a cult.
Guys, welcome to the sex cult. Join the Discord for $10 a month. You can join the sex cult. We talk about philosophy, your mom, and so much more. But I embrace the meme because I think it's funny. Now, of course, some people are gonna be like, oh my God, Brittany Simon has a cult. And those people were never gonna be in my audience anyways. Because you don't know what a cult is, you dummy. Like, if you don't know what a cult is, you were never gonna be in my audience.